if I wake up feeling shitty, it's because I've overexercised or, I'm just simply tired.
There needs to be like a new thing where it's not beer at the end of your shift.
Work a 16-hour shift and then you drink until 2 a.m. and then, you're up in the restaurant at 8 the next day.
I hate that when something happens and you need to like adjust, the tickets just keep coming and you're like,
yeah.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Linecheck podcast. It's me, Brennan Villarreal, your host, and today I'm in the studio with Matt Roberts. How's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing today?
It's good to see you today. I saw you earlier this week for wine tasting
I think on
with
Wednesday,
Sasha.
yeah,
Wednesday. And then you said you're gonna go do a bunch of things over the weekend, little weekend excursion.
Yeah. I went out to Joshua Tree and then raced back to Laguna.
Yeah, it sounds like very fun. Also very hot. How hot was it in Joshua Tree?
Man, it was upwards of 118.
Dang.
Luckily,
that
large
sounds
body of water.
That sounds like, yeah. I'm like hot right now, and I ran today, and it was only like 80 degrees, and I have like a weird sunburn I got on me. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah.
Because I wore a bandana, and then I had the sunglasses on, but I didn't put the bandana all the way to the sunglasses. So I have this weird red strip on my face. I'm sure you guys can see it. But yeah, that was my day. But yeah, we had a good weekend, and it's nice to see you here in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I actually met Chef Matt via Instagram.
Yes.
Just like a fan of Linecheck, and just kind of reached out to me and liked what we're doing, and we just started, going through stuff we talk about in the industry, and how it can get chaotic and someone's life when you're just like in the grind all the time, and then going out and doing the thing. You guys all know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and then I was like, yeah, let's just talk about this on the podcast. That'd be nice to because I haven't really dabbled into mental health that much. We did it once with Sad Girl Creamery. That was a little more different. But this one, we're going to talk about mental health in the restaurant industry, and I think that's important and something we haven't really dived into. So, yeah, welcome, Chef Matt, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in San Diego. Not much of a culinary background growing up in regards to my family. The food options were pretty limited, but I was very fortunate to have an Italian neighbor, Vietnamese neighbor, and a Filipino neighbor as well. So exposed to a lot of things in the kitchen there. I always kind of had a love for food, and really didn't quite find it till I was probably like 16, 17, worked as a line cook. And at the time was really heavy into photography, moved to Los Angeles at 19, worked as a high-end retoucher for quite a few years until I burned out doing that. And some friends encouraged me to cook. At 25, signed up for Le Cordon Bleu, and that was that.
Nice. How did you decide to work in the restaurant in your first job as a line cook? Were you just like looking for just a job, like any job, or you just got kind of thrown in? It
started as a delivery position. I'd worked 2 jobs prior as a landscaper for a community college, and then at a 76 station doing oil changes, and this seemed a little nicer, so started as a delivery driver and kind of worked my way into the restaurant when they needed people, and was an AM line cook working the breakfast line, so just jumped right into slinging eggs.
That's the same as me too. I was a dishwasher, and then they're like, hey, you're pretty fast at washing dishes.
Yeah.
You want to go on the line? I was like, sure. And then I was like, well, this is fun. This is like a game.
Yeah.
When you're doing breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you get weighted.
Yeah, exactly. And then
fun.
There's eggs everywhere. Just kidding. Yeah, how were you persuaded to go into the kitchens after the little stint of doing other things?
Yeah, so I was working as a high-end retoucher. I had started bartending on the weekends just at my neighborhood bar for shits and giggles, and kind of liked that lifestyle. And a friend and I had started to go down the culinary path together, and was really enjoying cooking. We were throwing a lot of these dinner parties. This is circa like 2003, 2004. And, a lot of our friends were giving us a lot of great feedback, and, so when I was kind of getting burnt out and not working as much doing the retouching. Had a couple friends kind of push me in that direction, and yeah, never looked back afterwards.
Awesome. Yeah, when I was working in like just a quick service breakfast restaurant, I didn't really think about cooking as a career. It was just like that was the job I was doing while I went to music school. And then I had one of my best friends that I've known since kindergarten. He was really into cooking, and he was like working in SF and these really cool restaurants. And then he like moved back to Long Beach, and then was like working at some LA restaurants. And he's like, Brandon, like, he's like, you're cooking. He's like, do you like it? I'm like, yeah, it's fun. He's like, you can like do this at like a really sick restaurant and really learn how to cook. And I was like, all right, that sounds interesting. Like, I'm kind of down, and like I'll go with my best friend to go work at a cool restaurant and learn more about cooking. And then I just did that, and it's kind of like that same way, like just like having someone there to like be like, hey, let's do this together, this will be sick, like we could open a restaurant together. And like, damn, that sounds like so much fun. And that's how I started like getting really into cooking and being like passionate about it. But yeah, that's how that started for me.
Yeah, it was interesting. At the time, I think I had started, but Top Chef, I believe, came out around that time or shortly after as well. So there was this massive influx of students. I think my graduating class was like 30% of what started.
Oh, wow.
You know, and there's all these like delusional things of like, oh, 90% job placement, you're going to get out of school and be a chef and all these things. And I had worked as a line cook, so I knew the reality was probably working 50, 60 hours a week, making minimum wage.
Yeah.
You know, it was good. A lot of people don't necessarily agree with the culinary school path, as it's very expensive. But for me, I was looking at it as a way to, this was something I loved, also tied in a lot with the visual, creative aspect. And, you know, it was a way to propel my skill set a lot faster.
Yeah.
Without having to, you know, as you know, like finagle your way through a restaurant. And, you know, I didn't want to land somewhere peeling potatoes.
Yeah. That totally makes sense now that I'm like thinking about your photography skills on all your photos that you post on Instagram of your food. The angles are very nice, and the color is very good too. It's like now it's all connecting the dots right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's like the same way for me too, because I remember one of my first interviews I had at like a more like farm to table restaurant. I told the chef like I went to school for music and I was like really into arts, and he's like, yeah, these things really go together, you know, being like creative and being able to cook and put something together. And like if you already like make music, that kind of like sings two dishes when you want to like make something. And I was like, I guess that's true. I mean, just like with you and your photography and cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all ties in. You know, the cooking is just one cog in the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's about the overall experience. And I think having bartended, having worked in the photography industry, being a very visual person, you know, it all kind of made sense. Also being a musician, you know, kind of looking at the overall arc of the experience as opposed to like, here's my specific thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's all it is. So let's talk about mental health now. Like, how did that? Like, obviously, you've had a long career so far, longer than me. So you know a lot more about the ins and outs of, you know, just being stuck in it.
Yeah, I mean, my path was always a little different. I was fortunate out of culinary school to open up a little cafe in Silver Lake, which I ran up until 2009. My wife at the time, we were about to have our first daughter. You know, no debt. We owned all the equipment outright. Lease was about to increase, and just kind of doing the math. And I'm like, you know, we can walk away from this clean right now. I'm glad we did, because the economy ended up tanking, and the restaurant probably wouldn't have made it. But so from there, I worked as a private chef for many years, and as a wine buyer for Whole Foods. And you know, after that, after my divorce, I only had the kids half the time, and I always thought it was kind of asinine to essentially be working to pay for daycare. So the private chef gig and the wine buyer gig allowed me to schedule my life around their needs. Then I was just left with like, oh, what do I do with the other half of my time? Jumped back into restaurants, lasted about a year and a half, and I'm like, this is dog shit. I was working 70, 80 hours a week and just miserable, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of when I just cut ties and left the reservation. So that was 2017. And just started to really get to know the hands that feed us, and branching out from Southern California into Ventura, Santa Barbara, SLO, and then next thing you know, I'm traveling all over California.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you definitely worked on some farms too.
Yeah, done a lot of farm dinners, more than I can count. And when I first landed on the Central Coast, I actually lived at Windrose Farm for almost a year.
Where is that at?
It's in Paso Robles, kind of near Creston. I had known Bill and Barbara, the original owners, and they sold it to Justin and Catherine Welch, amazing people. So I came on right as that transition was happening. So really kind of cool to not only spend a year there to see the seasons, to see the farm, but then also kind of watch their transition, and to watch them grow and expand and kind of bring Windrose back to what it was. It had struggled a little bit since COVID, and Bill and Barbara were getting a little bit older and looking to retire.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
How was it when you started working on farms, like after you left restaurants, like stopped working in a restaurant? Like, what was the how long did it take for you to adapt into that kind of setting?
It was really easy.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of a lone wolf outdoors person. So, any free time I have, I'm always outside. And it was a pretty easy transition and a very natural one for me. And then to be able to work with the food source directly and to host these dinners on these farms, to kind of take part in everything too. I worked with Meredith over at Autonomy for a few months as well. Driving tractors around and butchering chickens and doing irrigation, and I don't know, I've always been kind of hands-on. Did a stint as a carpenter as a young man as well, so
you've done a lot of things.
Jack of all trades.
I've always wanted to get that on my a tattoo of that, but I feel like I need more trades now. Talking to you, I was like, I feel like I've been a jack of all trades, but now I need to do more. I need more trades now,
or not.
Check off on my bucket list. So where you see yourself now and all the things that you've accomplished, and then as you're moving forward, how do you look back on your life as a chef?
That's been an interesting one, and as I've kind of gone inward and done some work as well, I think for myself, I got caught up a lot of the time in comparison, and I should be here at this stage of my career. I should have this restaurant. I should be doing this, and that. I can look back now and, with a little bit of grace and humility, tell myself I'm exactly where I need to be. And I certainly would have done things differently, but all in all, I'm here we are.
Yeah, I think I used to feel that way too. I'm just not just cooking, but I wanted to be married at this age and have kids at this age, and didn't happen. And I think I had to learn to be okay where I'm at right now, instead of being I should have done this right and I should have done that to be where I am right now, and now I'm behind and everyone's above me. And I think it really eats at you. And I know there's lots of people, it's not just us, but other people in the world that feel that way, in their careers. And there's a lot of things I'm just I'm happy I did these things in my career and to where I am right now. And, there's a million people out there that are way better at cooking than me. And, and it's even younger than me, older than me, but it's not a competition. I'm just, we're just doing it honestly because we love to cook. And I think that's a lot of people, I think that way sometimes in the industry. Is just I want to be better than the next person, but it's just cultivating your food. Love is food, food is love, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're putting on a plate and you just want to make people happy with the food without trying to, have any kind of competition.
I mean, that's just it. At the end of the day, my only competition is myself, because there's no one that cooks like me. And, you and I could be given a recipe, the same ingredients, the same equipment, and you'll get two entirely different dishes. And, it was a hindrance for so long, not in a big capacity, but enough to where it's just do your thing, keep marching to your drum, and, stay true to what you do, and you're not hurting anyone in the process. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I definitely I'm definitely a competitive person with myself now. Just trying to get better all the time, you know. And I think that keeps me healthy. And not just with the cooking, but like anything I do. And that goes into like the jack of all trades thing. I want to do so many things that I can't do them all.
Yeah.
It's like I'm started running and it's like, now I just want to get faster every time I do a marathon. I'm like, I'm going to beat this time. And so it's like, it's fun. But yeah, I wish I had the capacity to like focus on just one thing. Cause I like to jump all over the place. I have too many hobbies.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. You know, I've been told I have no woe, and then looking back, you know, too, if I'm honest with myself, like all the things I've started and not completed. You know, so I really try to narrow my bandwidth these days and focus, and you know, like sit when I don't feel like I should. And,
Yeah.
you know, this landing here in Long Beach has been really interesting. You know, not anything like I thought. You know, I landed officially in May with a torn calf and was, you know, not cooking for 2 months. And,
How did you tear your calf?
doing awesome old man shit. I wish I had a great story. I just was chasing my dog.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and that was it. Probably.
I tore my calf muscle before my 30th birthday.
Yeah, it's miserable.
And that hurt really bad. And I didn't know it was a torn calf at the moment. I was like, oh, that hurt. And then like I felt like the band snap. And then I was just like,
so bad.
And then it's got worse and worse as time went on. I was like, I can't walk.
Yeah. I had injured it and then thought it was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Got on my bike before a gig and was riding around. This was April 10th, and dismounted from the bike and it popped again.
Oh shit.
I had a gig that day, and I'd come back from the Santa Monica market, and I'm like, I can barely walk. And I've got a 5-course meal for 20 people.
Oh my God.
Muscled through the gig, and then like the next day I was like, leg just blew up. And,
Wow.
You know, that lets the blood all out. And
Yeah.
it's not fun.
That's not good.
Yeah, so I had all these. I was going to do a pop-up with my friend Dom over at the Linecheck Oyster in Echo Park, and had all these dinners planned and just canceled everything. And because I wasn't sure if I was going to need surgery, it took a month to get into the ortho. And yeah.
Wow.
So nothing what I had planned coming down here.
Yeah. So how do you love it so far?
It's great. I mean, Long Beach has been extremely welcoming to me. You know, I've met great folks like you, and did a dinner with the folks from Long Beach Mushroom back in March. We did an entire
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Argentina
I was
cross.
trying to go to it, but we had something that day, and I was like, "Damn it!
Yeah,
Why do I
beautiful.
got to do my own stuff? I always want to go eat at other people's stuff."
And I could have just done the podcast there.
Yeah. Yeah, but that looked amazing. Yeah. So, do you want to get into like mental health and
do it.
restaurants? You can start off and just talk about your, struggles and how you can help other people if they're trying to find a way to get out of this vicious cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think being in this industry, it's one thing, and then the last 3 or 4 years, I was in the middle of wine country. So it just became this thing where it was like I realized every activity I was doing involved alcohol, and it was normal to like, oh, let's try wine at 9 in the morning, And for me personally, I just I'm 43, I've done that, and it was basically felt like showing up to the same party with the same people, know. And not a knock against them in any capacity, but I needed a change. I'm ready to grow in more capacities, and so I kind of I had some really serious health issues at the time, and so a lot of things were compounding, and just had to take a really hard, honest look at myself and where I wanted to be and where I was at the time and what needed to change, and really hard, really fast. So, started attacking the mental health and doing a lot of group therapy. I still have a therapist that I work with now. I started EMDR, and really wanting to get to the root of a lot of the issues, that it's behaviors that were continuing in cycles and things that I didn't want to repeat anymore, especially as a father, and if we look at generational trauma, and there was certain moments, throughout my life where it's like, fuck, I'm doing the exact same thing I didn't want to do that my parents did. And, I think having children really puts that into perspective, and I wanted to break that cycle. I wanted to give them a clean start, if you will,
Yeah. I also go to therapy as well once a month. when I'm going to go back and to earlier in this podcast where I was talking about my best friend got me into cooking. He's homeless right now because of drugs. Just went too deep into, just doing drugs, drinking right after work, and getting into that vicious cycle like I'm talking about. And, now I see him sometimes on the street in Long Beach. It's a long story, but I know people would be like, why don't you do something about it and help him out? I've tried to help him out many times, and he's used me many times, and that's like, that's enough. I gotta put up a wall. But it's just like sad, what the industry can do. And he was so talented. Like he was one of the best cooks I ever worked with, best chefs I ever worked with. So it's just like, it's hard. I don't really know how to tackle it because I haven't worked in a restaurant where we go out a lot. It's probably been 5 years since I worked in a type of place like that.
Yeah, and I'm very far removed from it, and that was part of the reason as well. It was work a 16-hour shift and then you drink until 2 a.m. and then you're up in the restaurant at 8 the next day.
Yeah,
that's just not a healthy way to live.
Yeah,
and in the situation with your friend, it's such a fine line because at a certain point you have to protect yourself. And there's only so much you can give. And I've hit some pretty low points in my life as well, and battling depression, and where I've had people that needed to walk away from me, and I understand it. You have to maintain boundaries with yourself, and yeah.
I was gonna chime in on something, and then I totally just blanked out. But yeah, I don't know. I forgot. It was really good though. Just as you get older and I remember now. So we've been asking this question on Battle of the Houses. What do you do after you get off work? And it's depending on who it is, and where they're at in their career. Everyone's like a shifty. And someone said something, I think it was 2 Battle of the Houses ago, and he said it's a way to say it's okay to trauma. Because you get a shifty, and then it just ignores everything that just happened in your shift to have a drink and make you feel better.
Yeah.
And I was like, there needs to be a new thing where it's not beer at the end of your shift and doing something else, or maybe it's just whoever the owner is to cultivate an environment where they don't need to feel like they need a shifty after work.
Yeah, I mean, there's both sides to that. I mean, some people, it's great, again, to teach their own. And again, I've been removed from restaurants for 7 years now, so it'll be interesting to go back. I don't think I'm going to that environment, which is wonderful. Returning to a restaurant had to check a lot of boxes, and they checked a lot of the boxes. So, but yeah, I mean, when you're talking about avoidance of the trauma, it really just, for me, there's so much clarity now, and there's a lot of intention, and I'm present with just about everything in my life other than being late today, which is totally spaced.
It's all good.
But, the clarity is so wonderful.
Yeah, it feels so much better.
If I wake up feeling shitty, it's because I've overexercised or, I'm just simply tired.
Yeah.
I haven't added on top of,
Exactly. And I'm not saying that shifties are horrible. Everyone's roast me for that. It's on camera now and I'm live. I was like, there's nothing better sounding than when you snap the can of a Modelo with that crisp and it's cold. Okay. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say for that. But it feels nicer to work when you just have, clear mind and you feel good, and working out. And when I started going to the gym about 3 years ago, and I was like, wow, my legs feel so strong in the kitchen, just moving around, squatting, grabbing stuff. I'm not done with work and feeling tired. I'm just good. Yeah. I'm normal.
Yeah. I mean, my go-to after, a long day in the kitchen is usually just a shower.
Exactly. Cold shower.
Yeah. Maybe make some tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really exciting stuff.
Yeah. No, I drink tea every night too.
Yeah.
I drink a detox tea.
I found this great stuff. It's from Central America. It's called Capomo.
You have to put me onto that. Send me like the link or something.
It's great, it's bitter and kind of tannic like coffee, and you can make it in your French press, but it has natural levels of tryptophan in it.
What's that?
Like in turkey, that makes you kind of groggy.
Oh,
so at the end
okay.
of the night, or if I want coffee late in the day, have a little bit of that.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds nice. Me and Sasha were really in the tea, and it's kind of like our ritual every night is drink tea before we go to bed.
And that's so much of it too. It's just habit. We are such creatures of habit, and the mind and the ego wants to continue to do the same thing. It doesn't want change.
And it's nice. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It tastes good too. It's just having, you're dialed in to whatever you're doing. You're going to the gym every morning. Doesn't have to be every morning. Twice a week. You're waking up at a normal time. 10 is normal. If you work in a restaurant where you get off of work at like say 11, like if you go to bed at 12 or 1, waking up at 10 is fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't be a psychopath and wake up at like 8 in the morning. You need the 8 hours of sleep because you need to be ready to go the next day.
Yeah.
But when you get into like staying up till like 5 or whatever, 3 a.m. and then waking up at 2 and then you got to be at work at 3 p.m. That's where you start getting into that cycle. That's not good.
The snake eating his tail.
Yeah. So we're going to get to our last segment real quick. I'm going to ask you what your favorite in the weed story is. I'm sure you have like a million of these.
Yeah, it's different for what I do now because it's not in a restaurant. God, I have to go back. I have to shake the cobwebs here. It was probably at Union, our pasta cook. I was working Expo, and the executive he'd been out of town for a minute, and pasta cook went down with the burn, and it was like at 7 o'clock, right at the beginning of service on a Friday. I'm proficient on the pasta station, but it's a hard station to work, and then just jumping in from Expo on it, and someone else sliding in. The whole line basically shifted, and we were down a man, and it was one of the longest shifts. And that particular line was like 110 degrees.
Wow.
On average. We'd wear black, and I just would have boob sweat, like the stains, the salt stains underneath, like just white.
Yeah.
But we just got hammered that night, and it wasn't a very big restaurant, but enough to where it was maybe 150 covers. But it was just grueling and miserable, and probably one of the worst shifts I've ever worked.
Yeah, I can feel it where it just like never feels like it's gonna end.
Yeah,
it's just like a slow, like you feel like the heat, the little heat waves. That's how you feel like. Yeah,
and then there was the transition of like 15, 20 minutes. We were just trying to like adjust. The tickets keep stacking, and the servers at the time were driving me batshit crazy. I was like, guys, take a break. Offer them an extra glass of wine. We're transitioning, but nope, just ping, ping, ping.
Yeah, I hate that when when something happens and you need to like adjust. The tickets just keep coming, and you're like,
yeah. Wish there was just like a pause button.
Yeah, a pause, like just the click, that movie Deep click. Yeah, we all know that's horrible. Wow. Yeah, I feel that right now. It's also hot in the studio right now.
Yeah, a little toasty.
It's not too bad. It's not 110 degrees.
No.
So it was really good to have you on the podcast today. I'm going to see you around a lot now.
Yeah, I guess so.
You're stuck with me now. But you guys make sure you follow Chef Matt on Instagram. Check out all his food. He posts a lot of good food on there. Some nice photography. That's it. That's your line check for today. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you guys very much.
Awesome.